I think we are live. Let's hope that we are. This time, let's assume that
Yeah.
that we are live,
Yeah.
and let's just directly get started and see what happens. Um, yeah. So perfect, perfect. So let's
Yeah.
assume that we are live, and
Yes.
fingers crossed. Technology has never let us down, and so hopefully it will not let us down today as well.
I also get
So
notification.
you got a notification. Perfect. So
Okay,
then we are live,
great.
right? So
Uh,
awesome. So great, yeah, perfect. Then we should get started. So hello and welcome to Momentum Office Hours. My name is Yash, and I'm joined by my co-founders Harsh, Jai, Kaushik to discuss topic of the week: equity financing for SaaS firms. Our goal is to provide you with actionable insights and practical strategies that you can apply to your own SaaS products. Throughout the session, we encourage you to engage with us by asking questions and sharing your thoughts. This is a fantastic opportunity to learn from each other and gain new insights that can help drive your SaaS initiatives forward. So let's get started. Jai, Harsh, Kaushik, how are we doing today?
Good.
Yeah, doing
Fun.
great.
Doing
Have some
great.
winter
Awesome.
fever.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It seems like every live that we are doing, the energy goes down a little. It feels it feels a little like that, but also yeah. So good time to join and sort of talk about equity financing for SaaS companies. So what are your early thoughts?
I am sure we are going to have more views today. Somewhere I feel that. So yeah,
Fingers crossed.
would like to just get started with a very basic question on when and why would someone, just when a SaaS founder should think about equity financing. That would be my first question.
So the first, like I'd go to one level below before that, and I would say that the first thing that a SaaS founder should try and do is figure out whatever product that they are building, is it venture fundable or not, right? So and there's nothing wrong with businesses that are not venture fundable. They are more often than not very successful as well. However, the first thing that you want to try and figure out is a venture investor or a VC fund is only interested in funding a SaaS company if the market is big enough and if the product um, can reach to a point where it becomes a 50 million 100 million sort of a run rate company, right? So VC funds and private equity typically end up seeing returns only if the company goes really big, and
Mm.
for that to happen the market has to be that big, the problem has to be that important and urgent and frequent for that it is solving, right? And so as a SaaS founder, the first thing that you want to decide is whether this product is venture fundable or not. If it is not, then you want to figure out a way to bootstrap it out, right? So then you want to figure out where you can raise some small amount of capital from friends and family or some angel investors, and stuff like that, and you have the ability to build a really profitable SaaS company. But then over there the returns come in the form of the returns then come in the form of the dividend that are being paid out from the profits rather than the
Mhm.
value of the equity growing. Having said that, if you now know that okay, this my company is venture fundable, arguably I would say that you should start thinking about fundraising right away. You may not be ready, but you should start thinking about it right away. You should start building the relationships with prospects and with prospective investors. You should start going to events. You should start asking for advice. Should that start doing all of those exercises, I would say, right away, and then figure out when is the right time to raise from what type of investors, right? So how much capital do you need to raise? How much, till what stage can you yourself support the SaaS company and the growth of the SaaS company, and then sort of ask for money. So asking for money and thinking about equity financing are different. I would say that if you're venture fundable, you should start thinking about equity financing right away. Start networking with investors, meeting with them, and having this as a conversation as well.
Oh, so let's think any SaaS company looking for the equity financing, right? So what are the we can say there are some keywords such as the valuation. dilution, right? So there are what are some we can say the keywords that have to understand before we have to start on the equity side.
So, couple of things. So, one, I wouldn't say that those are keywords.
Yeah, not
That's a
keywords. Yeah,
very that's a
right.
very SEO sort of way of thinking about it. But these are key terminologies, right? That you need
Terminologies.
to
Yeah.
that you want to understand. So, the first thing that you want to understand is dilution. So, which basically refers to what percentage of the company is going to be diluted and owned by the investor who's coming in. Valuation is sort of a calculated function of dilution. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
the investor who's putting in, let's say, $1 million for 10%, then the company gets diluted by 10%. And by the function of me investing $1 million for 10%, the company is now valued at 10 million, right? So the whole company is $10 million. So valuation is something that you want to know and
Mm-hmm.
understand. The other thing that you want to understand is your vesting schedule.
Investing.
So one of the things that typically ends up happening as soon as an investor steps in is that the founders start getting paid in cash as well as equity, which means that at the time of founding, let's say there are two founders and we started at 50-50. I have 50% of my equity with me, and then I get paid in some salary, whatever it is that the company is paying me. However, as soon as the investment happens, the percentage equity that I own, so let's say it is 45, 45, 10, 10 is for the investor, 45, 45 for the two founders. My 45% will be vested to me over a period of next 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, right? Depending on how long do I stay with the company. So that way, if one of the founders leaves the company is not sort of left without a large chunk of equity going away with that particular founder. So I want to understand what is cliff and what is vesting. The other thing that I want to understand is what are certain affirmative rights, right? So affirmative rights are rights that an investor or a person who's putting in the money they will have in the company decision making process, right? So there are certain decisions that will need to have an affirmation from the investor. And so more often than not, at seed stage, these are not big questions or concerns, but at later stages, affirmative rights, as an example, could be, for going public, getting listed on any public market, you need to have an affirmative vote of yes from the investors. Another example is for opening up an office or operations in a new geography, not
Mm-hmm.
sales, but operations in a new geography where you're recruiting people and things like that. You may need to have an affirmative right from the investor. So it depends on the negotiation that you've done with the investor. The other thing that as a founder you should understand is what are the exit clauses. So because we don't have a lot of time, so I just mention those things and you can
Yeah, yeah.
search yourself. But you want to look at drag along clauses, tag along clauses. You want to look at what are the liquidation preferences and what are the modes of exit that an investor is expecting from the organization and what is the time frame. So these three four other things that you should also want to look at, but these are very primarily very early stage sort of a look at key terminologies that a founder should know when they're raising capital.
So Yash, so let's say when I have a product, when I have a SaaS product, and when I'm looking for equity financing. So what key metrics do investors look out for that's specific to SaaS products? So
Mhm.
and also like how do they come to a conclusion based on these key metrics? I think
Hmm.
that's something someone who is looking forward would
Mhm.
want to know, right? So yeah.
Sure. So like the 7 8 SaaS metrics that you should also measure to figure out health of your SaaS business are also the metrics that an investor looks at. And then there are a couple others that I'll talk about in a little bit. So the key metrics that they look at is your customer acquisition cost, your lifetime value, your MRR, your ARR, your growth rate, your churn rate, your net revenue retention, your net promoter score, which are the general metrics that you should measure yourself as well, that an investor also looks at. A couple of other metrics that you might not be measuring, but an investor wants to measure and will also look at is they'll want to look at what is the ability of your SaaS company to land and then expand. Right? So as an example, a lot of SaaS companies will have the ability to be adopted by a very small part of the organization, by the customer, a very small part of the customer, and then they will expand within that organization, right? So basically, you've spent, as an example, $1,000 to acquire a customer who's paying you $300 a month. However, over the next 1 year, that $300 a month eventually ends up turning into like $2,000 a month, because your product went in, was loved by a small group of people, and then it expanded. So that's one thing that an investor likes to see. What's the ability for your product to land and expand? The other thing that they would also want to see is what are your turnaround times of closure, right? So from the first contact made to closure, how long are your deal cycle, and how involved do people have to be from your organization? How complicated is the decision making process on their side? And does the value of the deal make economic sense for the deal cycle, or for the turnaround time of a particular closure? Does the value of the deal make sense, right? Are you spending 3 months to close a $10,000 a year contract, or are you spending like 1 month to close $100,000 a year contract? And so that's another metric that an investor would like to see. The third thing that they would like to also see is how scalable are your customer acquisition process? Oh, sorry, customer acquisition channels, right? So as an example, um, one of the mistakes that we make assuming that Google Ads is infinitely scalable, but that's not true. If I'm building a category creator, so if I'm building a SaaS that is a new category, there is no search volume for that category, which means that even if I want to invest $1 million into Google Ads over the next 2 quarters, I will not be able to, because people are just not searching for it, right? So, so whatever acquisition channels that I have, how scalable are they? Am I acquiring customers through doing webinars much like this? Then they are not scalable. But or am I acquiring my customers through SEO? Because in those cases they are scalable. So these 2 3 things, as a typical SaaS business, we may not measure. However, an investor will look at these things as well.
Yeah, right. So there was a question little beyond in the journey. So I mean, before starting the journey of equity financing, at times what happens is founders are little concerned about losing their control over their company in exchange for equity, right? So is
Mhm.
there any particular advice that you would like to give them?
So, so again, very arguable. I'd say that founders will eventually lose control of company whether they raise capital or not, right? So as and when an organization grows, you would see that founders are left with less and less things to do, and it is very difficult for them to make changes in the organization, because an organization or a group of people have a mind of their own. So founders should not go in, whether they are raising capital or building a company, they should not go in thinking that I want to maintain control of this organization. If all goes well and if the organization starts growing, there's a very good chance
That's
that you will not be able to maintain control. So what you typically want to do, however, if you still want to maintain control of the organization, I would recommend in those cases, you want to raise capital from investors who you know really really well, who have invested in your industry, um, 5 or 6 times before, who have seen a couple of exits, who have seen a couple of companies shutting down as well. So you want to raise capital from investors who are experienced in investing in the space that you're operating in, right? In those cases, you will realize that investors more often than not are significantly more supportive, and they want to help take the founder and the company forward. But I would again say that this would be an incorrect goal of trying to maintain control of the company, because as it is, that's not going to happen.
Well, that's really good insight. I mean, but again, one more question to this: is there any way where SaaS firms can structure equity deals just to maintain like long-term strategic control?
So in India, as soon as you give away 26% or more, to an individual or a group of individual or entities, you lose control. Right? So as soon as a group of people have 26% in an organization, all of those can get together and then exercise their right of first refusal. Right? So exercise their right of not going ahead or not allowing you as an organization to go ahead. If you end up raising 2 or 3 rounds of financing, doesn't matter how you structure your equity or board or whatever, 26% will be outside with other stakeholders. I mean, a good way to think about it is, even if I have two founders, right? If there's a 50-50 split, neither one of those has control on the company. Right?
Yeah.
So that's already like done and dusted, right? So but there's no way to make sure. So here's another way to look at it, right? If control is extremely important to you, like for whoever on behalf of whom you're asking this question, like, if control is really important to you, here's a great way to look at it. While you may not maintain control, you will not be you can make sure that other people also don't have control, right? So you can you can take the company into a limbo. There is nothing that can happen, right? And so ultimately, but investors don't want to do that, right? So they want to make sure. I mean, they only make money in one scenario, right? So there are 999 other scenarios where they lose money. They only make money when it hits the bullseye, and they want to enable the company to get there.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, in this fundraising journey, right, we have different stages. Like we first they are looking for the seed funding, right? Then after the some time they are looking for the Series A, Series B funding, right? So can you just like give some brief on which stage we have to look for which type of funding?
So these are not technical terms. These are terms that are given by market. Right? So
Yeah. Right.
it's like someone is old or someone is young, and like I could be young at 40 and I could be old at 35. So these are relative terms, right? So like age is a technical term. 35 years
Yeah.
is a technical term, but old or young is not a technical term. That's how I would equate Series A, seed,
Okay.
and so on and so forth. So as an example, in our previous organization, we raised our seed round, and our seed round was $100,000. Um, you will see in Silicon Valley there are people who are raising seed rounds of $5 billion. Right? So again, so typically what you see is you have FNF, which is your friends and family,
Hmm.
and then that's followed by seed, that's followed by angels, that's followed by Series A, B, C, and then up to F, and then the company goes public. That's the ideal journey. However, you might be able to see a company that's like raising somewhere in the middle, and so you will say that they raised the pre-series A, right?
Yeah. Right.
Or they raised the bridge round and stuff like that. So more often than not, every funding round has a goal that's attached to it, ideally, right? Again, you can feel free to do your own thing, but more often than not, these are the goals that are attached to it, right? So friends and family is to build out an MVP and put out there in the world. Your seed round is to get to your first 10 or 50 customers depending on your ticket size. Your angel round is to get to a PMF, right? So it is a product market fit sort of a stage.
Hmm.
You raise your Series A. Once you hit PMF, and then now you know that at product market fit, you know that these are the acquisition channel, these are the conversion rates, this is how much I have to invest in the product. So you know all of the ratios within the company, and the economics sort of make sense. And then B, C, D, E can happen for whatever reason. So in certain cases, they happen for expanding into new geographies. In certain cases, they happen because they want to have inorganic ways of growth, which could be acquisitions. In certain cases, they happen because they want to explore a new line of business, and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So B, C, and D, there's no rule as such. But your sort of friends and family, seed, angel, seed,
Angel.
sorry,
Venture.
seed, angel, Series A, is primarily for your first few years of your journey for you to achieve your product market.
Okay, great, great. Yeah.
So,
So, yeah. So it can be possible that I have raised fund for Series A, and then after I want to raise fund for Series C. I can skip Series B. It can be possible or not?
It is, you just call, so like the funding round that happens after Series A is called Series B.
Series B.
Yeah,
So
right.
whatever it is
So
that you do will be called Series B.
Series B
That,
automatically. Okay.
yeah, will be called Series B, or you could skip it. I mean, it's like Series B, C is like 50 million, 100 million, like that's the range that we are talking about. So at that scale, I think you have the money, so you can, like if you are, so if you have $50 million, you can say that I am raising my Series Y, right? So it's completely up to you.
So,
That, I like how at a point you just mentioned it very philosophically that the more you if everything goes well, the lesser you'll have control over the company.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that brings me to a question with respect to this. Like, so when does one think about raising funds? Like, when do I decide
So,
that when should I raise funds for my company?
so, so if you have a very specific purpose for the funds,
Hmm.
you should start thinking about raising funds right away, right? So if there is, so think of it this way: if there's an experiment that you want to perform or you want to design, but you are not able to do that because you don't have capital, then and it is extremely important for you to do, then you should think about raising capital, right? So as an example, um, you you may be in a position where you want to see if Google ads and SEO and inbound and doing Pro Max campaigns, all of these can be very viable customer acquisition channels. Then what you want to do is you want to figure out a way to invest like $50,000 into those channels, have some very early numbers, and then use those numbers to raise like $1 million, so that you can then invest those million into those experiments and see what happens, right? So as long as you have a very specific use for for that capital, you should look at raising capital. So like the very simplest way of looking at capital is basically it helps you unlock value with as little labor as possible, right?
Hmm.
The If you don't have capital, you have to put in the labor, right? So but if you have capital, you can employ labor from other people, right? So capital is just acceleration of unlocking value. And so in companies, if your whole central advantage of running the company or growing the company is that once I acquire a customer, they will not go away. So capturing the market is one of the key ways of making sure that there's an entry barrier for another competitor of yours. Then you should raise capital, right? If you're working on a technology which requires like a team of 10 data scientists or something like that, and without that it's just not going to go from 0 to 1, then you should look at raising capital, right? So yeah.
right. So, for a SaaS company, Yash, let's say it is in a seed stage and now they have raised equity or they are planning to raise. In these cases, are there any practical ways for them to deploy the equity capital so as to make sure that there is a sustainable growth? If there are any tips that you could share.
So I'd say that you want to deploy the capital in a way that you are able to cover parts of your costs, right? So the first thing that you want to do is you want to deploy the capital in a way such that the revenue that you generate is able to take care of your customer acquisition cost, which includes all of your ads, marketing campaigns, and the sales and marketing. And then whatever little capital that you have left, you want to deploy it in a way that it starts to take care of your fulfillment costs, which is your engineering, your servers, and stuff like that. And then whatever capital that you have, you want to deploy it in a way that it starts taking care of your leadership costs. And then it allows you, and then it generates such revenue that you are able to run smaller experiments, like after taking care of your customer acquisition, after taking care of your fulfillment, after taking care of your leadership, it gives you some budget to run some experiments also. At that point of time, you essentially become cash flow positive. So if you
Right.
stop investing capital, you have become a sustainable SaaS company. You have infinite runway, right? So you can stay alive as long as you want. And then sort of look at profitability over a period of time, right? So that's sort of how you want to think about it. You want to first take care of customer acquisition, and then your fulfillment, and then your leadership, and then experiments, and then profitability.
Right, and in this case, just because there could be some confusion, so I mean, I have some confusion. So in this case, most of the times, what happens is SaaS founders are keen to build new features just to attract more set of users. So building that particular feature would also be considered, should be considered under customer acquisition cost itself, right? Because it's in one way it is going to acquire more customers, or that should not be.
I would vehemently disagree.
Okay.
Sorry for vehemently, but
Yeah.
but I sort of disagree. So a couple of things to think about, right? Basically, if you are losing deals, so first is that most SaaS founders at early stages are not losing deals. They are not even getting enough deals to lose them, right? So that's
Right.
that's one. Second is that if you're losing deals because you don't have a very specific feature, then it's a different thing. But more often than not, if you actually look at all the sales calls that are happening and all the deals that they're losing, the first reason that you will see is that it solves a problem that they don't want it to be fixed, right? It's not even a big problem. Or they're losing deals because the purchase process is cumbersome. There are a lot of people involved and they are not able to see enough ROI. Or they will lose deals because the pricing is not clear, or the pricing is too high, or they lose deals because the prospect doesn't trust the company enough, right? And then the fifth reason, if there is because there is a lack of feature. You will see in the world out there that there are a lot more inferior products doing significantly better than other products which are feature rich but don't have any customers, right? And so the thought process of assuming that more features equals to more value is incorrect.
Correct.
And so I'd say that every ounce of capital or every cent of capital that you have, you want to invest in making sure that you have customer acquisition sort of set out correctly, and that's the distribution is the only differentiating factor, right? Technology is commodity. We at Momentum can build whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you want to build. So yeah, it's a commodity.
Uh, Great, great. Yeah. So just once any SaaS firm have decided, okay, now they are looking for the fundraising, right? And so first step they need to is to create the pitch decks, right? So that they can
Yeah.
they to go to the investor and they will try for fundraising. So there are any good tips, such like the we have the list of metrics, right? That we have mentioned. So we can add these metrics in the pitch, right? Is there any additional things that it is a good or it is a better way to add in pitch decks in the deck?
So this is one of the major misconception, I would say, that so pitch deck is an executive summary of the business. You cannot write an executive summary of a report if you've not written the report. So,
Okay.
so like pitch deck is like a 10-minute or a 15-minute short summary of what the whole business is. So what you want to do is the first thing that you want to do is you want to have some amount of quantitative understanding of the market. So you want to look at
Mm-hmm.
the market, the size of the market from whatever research reports that you are able to find. Then you want to have qualitative understanding of the market. So by speaking to prospective buyers who, if you build the product, are going to buy, but asking them questions, understanding what their requirements are, and then sort of document that, right? So that's the first thing
Okay.
that you want to do. Second thing that you want to do is you want to have deep understanding of your competitors, right? So and not just like their website and their positioning and their pricing and stuff like that, but you also want to look at how are they running their ads, what are their acquisition channels, going and getting demoed by them and looking at what their sales process is like, and undergoing all of those things, right? The third thing that you want to like very genuinely answer is, why are you the right people to build this product, right? Like, why
Oh.
not someone else? And so you need to figure out what are your past experiences that enable you to build this company or to build this product in a more more efficient way or a better way, right? The fourth thing that you want to do is you want to write your financial projections. So you want to assume certain things, make assumptions, and then create a 3-year projection, right? So if you had a reasonable amount of capital, if you had a reasonable style of team, then where do you think the company can reach in the next 3 years? And then you want to take all of that work and then present it as a pitch deck, right? So
Okay.
pitch deck, we'll typically talk about your problem. How is that problem being solved today? What is your solution? Who are the competitors who are offering similar solutions? um, you want to talk about the team that is working on this. You want to talk about the size of the market. You want to talk about your customer acquisition channels. You want to talk about what how much revenue will you be able to make over the next few quarters or next few years. So all of that is an executive summary, but you need to have all of these supporting documents, because a pitch deck is great, and you can send it out and people can read it, but then the outcome of the pitch deck is like you cannot use the deck to close a deal. The
Oh
pitch
yeah.
deck basically leads to another meeting, right? And that
Yeah.
meeting is like a 1 hour coffee meeting or a 2 hour discussion at the office in a conference room or something like that. And at that point of time, you cannot just show your 10-minute pitch deck for 2 hours, right? They will
Yeah.
want to they'll want to inquire more, and they'll be curious, they'll want to understand more. So you want to have all of those things done as well. I think that's pretty much it for today, unless we have some do we have any final thoughts? If not, then that's sort of pretty much it for today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
can
Yeah.
I hope this was helpful. Thank you everyone for joining in on LinkedIn and on YouTube. I hope this was valuable. If you have any questions around equity financing, I raised a couple of rounds of equity financing for company. You can write those in comments. Happy to answer those as well. But thank you everyone for joining in. Until next time.